Darren Lou's on, and I wanted to bring up a point, and maybe this is a good group to talk about it with, is Darren suggested that we possibly create a better communication system rather than email, whether it's through GroupMe or some sort of app that allows us to communicate together. Do you guys want to weigh in on that decision, on what that would look like if I added 40 of you to a GroupMe chat where we could share cases, talk about things, and just communicate on a different way rather than email?
I'd be fine with that. Email's fine with me as well. If they want to do that, I'm good either way. I don't think I have a strong opinion either way.
Okay. Aaron, what do you think?
Me, Aaron?
Yes, you, Aaron.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. Is GroupMe kind of like a WhatsApp or like texting kind of? Is that what that is?
I'll have to let Darren talk about that, but I think so. I've used GroupMe a lot, and it interacts with your phone as if you're on like a giant group text message.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
But the way it works is you can read the text messages either in the app or they can come to you as notifications through your text. So you can get them either way.
Okay.
Darren, can you respond, or are you muted? If you don't unmute, then I'll just assume you're like in class or something. Okay, cool. Nice. Okay. Well, that I wanted to do that. I mean, I know the email sometimes is tough to get through and an interesting way to respond back and forth, but the GroupMe is really a neat situation. So I'll explore that and maybe set it up. So. All right, I'm going to push record, so we've got this recorded for later and the people that missed. But I'm grateful that you would be online with us. As I talked to Lane earlier today, I thought, what a great resource he is to be on live, to answer questions, and to be with you. If you don't know, Lane is my uncle, so he lives in Colorado, and he runs the Prospecta Marketing Company. And Lane is going to introduce himself and what he does, but from my vantage point, I wanted to share what I see him do for Crown Council members for the last 10 years, at least 10 years, Lane. I don't know how long it's been, but at least 10.
Yeah, it's been 12, almost 13. Yeah.
So a lot of the times marketing in a practice, it happens in a way where I've seen marketing groups come to an office and they say, here's all the marketing that we're going to supply and it's going to cost us this much. The thing that Lane does that's different is he actually creates a marketing plan that does cost, but then is paid for and tracked in a way where the results are what matter to him. He doesn't just create some sort of marketing package and then turn it on and then hope it works. He's tracking, he's watching, he's reporting, and he's talking to each of the dental practices in Crown Council and then showing the results, how much money comes in from that person or patient that they gather, and then that is what is paid for through Prospecta, the real-time results for marketing and online strategy. So he solved a real solution or a real problem. He found a real solution in marketing when it comes to dental practices online. That's what I see. That's the things that are most impressive when we talk to people that work with Lane and have worked with Lane for years. Hopefully I did you justice, Lane, but if you want to explain what you do better than I do, go ahead.
You're very kind. Thanks, Stu. And it's great to be with all of you tonight. Appreciate your taking the time and hope this will be beneficial and can answer some questions that you have with regards to internet search. And I thought if it'd be helpful, I'm just going to take maybe 3 or 4 minutes and just highlight a couple of things as a framework for our discussion today. And then would be glad to entertain any questions that you've got, if that'd be helpful. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Let's see if this will work. There we go. So just a couple of highlights here with regards to, the importance of internet search. I don't think it's a mystery to any of us that there's been a huge change in the last decade in terms of how people find dental practices. And as a local business, 97% of the consumers use the internet to find local businesses. I occasionally today still have a doctor ask me if phone directories are worth it, and basically they're not, except just have a listing in there. But when we talk about internet search, there are kind of three key places on the search page that are of importance, and this has all changed very rapidly in the last couple of years, including the format of this search page. Google changed this format a couple of years ago in preparation for what they did this summer, which was basically to change all of the search results to a mobile first index, meaning that the search results you see on the desktop are going to be the same as the ones you see on a mobile phone. And so there are kind of three key areas. The top, of course, are the pay-per-click results that are critical and have become even more critical with the growth in mobile, because so much, I mean, that's the first thing you see. You may only see 1.5 listings on your mobile phone when you pull up these search results. So if you're dependent solely on organic search, you're going to have them scroll down a very long way before you even get into contention. So those paid ads are becoming more critical. You've got your local listing in the map pack, which shows your Google My Business listing. This has changed dramatically over the last year or two, with kind of Google Plus has kind of gone away, and they're trying to get rid of it as quickly as possible. And so now they're expanding what we can show in that local listing, including photos and videos, and you can now do posts on there. They've got a Q&A section they just added in the past year. So this has become a real center of a lot of activity now, including your reviews, which are critically important. And then the third critical area, of course, are your organic or natural listings. And so when we talk about internet search, we're really talking about all three pieces of this to help create visibility on the page. And of course, the idea is to dominate that page as much as we possibly can, because we know from studies and from our own observations that the more listings we can have show up on this page, the click-through rate to your website is going to be greater than the sum of the parts. In other words, if you have an organic and a paid listing, you're going to get more click-through than if you have what you would get from paid and what you would get from organic. You'll get more traffic through there. So that's kind of just a helpful reference. There are other things that we do that help create visibility, such as videos. We can optimize those on YouTube to get them to show up in those organic results too. That's kind of the game, is to be in the path of people when they're looking for you and are most interested. And then the other piece is kind of the back end piece that Stu was talking about, that has been kind of a centerpiece of what we have done with our doctors ever since we started, and that is paying attention to this, what we call the conversion funnel. And it's basically looking at all of the decision points that a new prospect would consider to get from the point where they search online to the point where they come in, accept treatment, and complete that treatment. So in the middle there, you've got, they've got to decide to click on your listing, and they get to your website, and then they've got to decide to contact you. And we want to make that as easy as possible. And then once they contact the office, got to get them to make an appointment, to follow through and come for that appointment, get a treatment plan, and then agree to accept treatment. So we've got basically 6 decision points in there, and every one of those is an opportunity for them to fall out of the process. We want to keep as many of them in that process as possible. And so one of the key things to keep in mind is understanding that process and what's going on at each of those levels becomes critically important to being successful with your marketing. And there are various ways to do that, but having conceptually understanding the critical importance of seeing what's happening on the back end. You may be getting a ton of leads, but if they're not converting, that portion of your marketing may not be profitable. And likewise, you may have some things that are wildly profitable that are really doing well, and if you're aware of that, you can capitalize that on that and improve your marketing. So that's just to touch on a few points kind of for framework. There are, of course, some things that have changed dramatically with the growth in mobile and the importance of reviews that I highlighted in that presentation, and we can talk about that a little more if that would be helpful. But hopefully that gives us kind of a framework to talk about tonight. So be happy to entertain any questions that you have that would be helpful to you.
Did you guys bring any questions? Does anybody have stuff they want to ask Lane? Any specifics about what he talked about? Do it, Aaron.
Lynn, are you able to make an organic search of what people are Googling just in terms of dental terms, or what terms people are popping up to get to a dentist?
Yes, if I understand your question, do we look at those organic searches to understand what they're looking for?
Yeah, so in that, and then with that, you can use that to kind of tailor your website so that more people of like mind, like thinking, kind of gravitate towards you.
Yeah, good question. So when we start with a website, we actually start with that in reverse. So we have a pretty strong fundamental knowledge from having done this for a lot of years as to keywords that people are searching on, but we also do an initial work session with the office. When we start working with your office, for example, we talked about what services were going to be most important to the practice, what you wanted to emphasize. So we kind of start at a strategy level, and then we actually create a keyword and page map for the developer. So we'll say, okay, we want a dental implants page, and here are 3 keywords that we want to build that page around. And we'll do that for each of the service pages on the website. So they've got a kind of a keyword map to work with to incorporate into the page. As we go down the road and get some learning from this cycle, so we can see what people searched on that brought in your best patients, then we circle back and say, you know, are we using the best terms? And sometimes it's a matter of, hey, you know, this area, let's take dental implants, for example. This is doing fantastically well. We're getting a 20 times return on what we're spending. So we circle back sometimes and suggest adding pages that give us opportunity to optimize for additional keywords. The other interesting part of that cycle, David, is a lot of times, because when you do pay-per-click advertising, you're using, you know, a ton of keywords. We usually have 80 to 120 keywords that we'll start with, and often a lot more. And so you get some fairly quick learning from pay-per-click as well. And that kind of informs the organic optimization sometimes, and will affect what we do with the website. So we look at a website, to your point, as very much an organic changing thing, document. It doesn't say stay static. We're doing stuff with that all the time. Yeah, so that's a good question. Any other questions of interest?
To build on that, how are you tracking which keywords are working the best? Are you creating like satellite websites off of the doctor's sites and then tracking through whether people are clicking onto those sites, or are you working with their web developers to, I guess, see what pages people are directed to first? And then kind of going off of that as well, for the video you mentioned adding like near me or nearby to different keywords. Is that something that generally like marketing companies like yours or marketing managers direct that? Or is that something where as a dentist, we want to have, okay, these are a list of services and these are the keywords we want to be using, you know?
Yeah, very good. Let me start with that, because it's a real key area that's of change that's been occurring. Before, there wasn't a lot of that near me, nearby kind of search going on, and they just search for a service with a location, right? And what's happened now is the search engines can detect where you are, and I don't know if any of you have received a Google Beacon. Have you in your practice? They're just randomly, well, not randomly, but they're sending those out to some practices, and those are helping them with additional points to detect when someone enters and leaves the business. And so Google's got a pretty good sense for where you are when you search, and those near me or nearby keywords are becoming really relevant. It's a little harder to optimize for those organically, but you can with paid ads. Now, there are a few exceptions. I've seen a dental practice recently that named their practice Dentist Near Me. That's their practice name, which was kind of interesting. But yeah, that ought to be in the mix of keywords, and whoever you're working with, you ought to, ask them if they incorporated those in those kinds of keywords: cosmetic dentist near me, dentist near me, dental implants nearby, those kinds of keywords, and ask them if they've incorporated those into your mix of keywords. So that can be very helpful. And let's see, Aaron, your other question was about the keyword terms that.
Yeah, just kind of curious how they keep track of that, but kind of building off what you just said too, how they keep track of what keywords people are actually searching. So whether it's like, like I talked to one company where they make like satellite sites off of your site, I guess is what they do. Mm-hmm. And so when people look up different terms, then they'll get forwarded directly to these service pages. And then they have like a different phone number on there so that they can then keep track of where people are calling from and all of that. So I guess how do you keep track of those analytics? And then, I guess we'll start with that. Yeah,
good. So there are a couple of ways that you can track keywords. If you're doing some paid advertising, it's pretty easy to get those analytics. Mm-hmm. Because you can go back in through AdWords or through Bing ads and capture that data through reporting. However, analytics are harder and harder as far as keywords are concerned, because those, about 2 years ago, Google or Congress hauled the search engine chiefs in for some hearings about privacy, and I'm sure it probably scared them to death, but following that, Google started blocking all of the organic search keyword results if you were logged into your Google account. And they followed in the spring by starting to block the paid ad searches as well, but we can still get that through. So that makes it a little harder. So we do two things to try and capture that. We certainly can capture the keywords through the ad programs, Google Ads and Bing Ads. Then you referenced another thing that you can do, and that is if you track what landing pages people come to, it gives you at least some indication of what they're interested in. And so we can see from analytics whether, like, for example, if they landed on a dental crowns page, we know that they had interest in dental crowns, and so we can see whether they converted or not if your analytics are set up properly. So that's one way, and it isn't really necessary to set up satellite pages. You can do that off your main website if you want to do that. And then the other thing that becomes real critical is getting your front desk team tuned in on that intake form. Have them ask, how did you find out about us? Ask them if they remember what they searched on to find your office. And sometimes you can get some data that way as well to kind of capture that information. So those are a couple things you can do. Now, when we talk about this conversion funnel, the other thing you want to be able to do, if you can, is connect those conversions to what they searched on. And that can be really helpful to you so that you can see what's bringing in your best patients. Does that help some?
Yeah, that definitely helps. It's interesting too that you say that you don't need to have those landing pages, because when I was talking to, they were a rep of, it was a web.com. I don't know if you've heard of them. And they were saying, they were telling me that, oh, those are really important because then they're directed directly to the page, but then you have to set up all these, you work on your website and you try to get all this content and videos and get everything right. And then you're creating all these like sub websites, which seemed counterintuitive to me, but I don't know if maybe it's a positive thing or if that's something that's not really necessary. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that is a real good question, and kind of an area that we're actively debating within our team right now. I don't really believe in having just satellite standalone pages so much as sometimes there is benefit in creating what we call a microsite. So let's say you wanted to create a real presence in the market for, let's say, emergency dentistry. And you can accomplish some things on a small site that might have 3 or 4 pages of content about emergencies. Or another one that works really well is dental implants. There's a lot of information you can share with consumers about implants and a lot of keywords that you might want to have visibility for. So you might create a small site that has 3 or 4 or 5 pages of content about implants, along with an About Us page and a Contact Us page. And the purpose of that site is really to create greater organic presence. And then you direct all your pay-per-click through there. And we have done that. We have found when we get out onto, we've had real good success with those with Invisalign, with implants, to some extent with sedation. I'd say those 3 have probably worked the best. And then a doctor that's doing a lot of focus on sleep apnea and snoring kind of stuff, we've done some microsites for those that have done very well. But these used to be really useful back when having a domain that had those keywords in it was really made a difference. And that's changed. So, if you had, for example, dentalimplants.denver.com as a website, why that having those keywords in the domain really helped your rankings. I think it still does to some degree in dentistry, but it's not the same impact it used to have 3 years ago.
Okay, thanks.
So, anyway, I hope that helps. There are some things for which it does help. What you want to be careful of is not having them create a whole series of pages that are linking back into your site, where you've got 10 or 15 of these, and Google starts to think you're creating what they call a link farm, creating artificial links into your site. And they do not respond well to that. Having a few is fine, but those get too numerous, why they start to get suspicious. So,
thank you.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions that'd be helpful?
How expensive is it to kind of have someone track all this stuff for you and kind of see where people are clicking and see how profitable it is for you?
That's a good question, and it probably depends on what's in that package. I can tell you what that looks like in our case, but it'll be different depending on what's in that package. We do search engine optimization. We manage the pay-per-click advertising. We help you with local listings and ideas and tools for reviews, as well as doing all this back-end tracking. And we've got a tool called the Prospect Tracker that basically is wired to your website so that every time somebody contacts you by phone, by email, or by a contact form, or by text, it automatically enters into that Prospect Tracker. I don't know if you've seen that one in your office that we do with your practice, but
yeah.
And then we tie that together with your online, the analytics we're picking up online. So it matches all that up. And so that's included as part of what we do. But we charge $16.25 a month with all those services, and include the phone tool and blogging and a whole bunch of stuff that we do as part of that. I don't know of very many internet marketing agencies that tie all this together the way I've described to you. It's frankly a lot of work.
Yeah.
But and it requires wiring this together with some software so that it all pulls together. But there are some simple ways to do this that are also useful to do if you're not doing all this detailed wiring. Just pulling into your Dentrix and capturing patients where they came from the internet and where they came from. Just capturing it at that level can be really useful, just so that you know what you spent and how much revenue was generated from internet leads. Can be helpful just so that you're evaluating whether you're getting a good return on what you're investing.
Gotcha.
And that'll keep your internet marketing agency in line, so that you know whether that's providing a good return. I wanted to show you just one other thing with regards to mobile that was in this presentation, and Aaron, back to your reference about near me keywords. This growth in mobile has been stunning. I mean, it's been amazing. And basically 4.5 years, we've gone from about 22% of those searches being done on mobile phones to 55% today. So it's more than half. And, it's going to continue growing, but it's changing how people search. I remember early in 2014 when that was at 22%, and most of those searches were by existing patients that were looking for your address or your phone number. And that has changed dramatically. We see, dental implant patients that are converting on mobile phones. And so the whole complexion of this has changed as the screens have become bigger, the search experience is much better. And, it's important for the team that's answering the phones to be in a mindset to think chances are better than 1 out of 2 that the person I'm talking to is calling me on a cell phone. They're probably not in front of a computer. And, we know from just what we do every day, that's not surprising, is it? We tend to do a lot of search on phone. So, any other questions anybody has?
What about Are there things that this group does or can do that you want to share with each other? In the sense of a true mastermind group, Crown Council is trying to connect you guys in a way where you're learning from each other and not making the same mistakes, or learning from each other and doing the things that seem to be working. Is there advice that you would give each other, or things that are working that could possibly be shared?
I have a question for the group as far as like claiming Google business and claiming their Yelp page and kind of dealing with that without necessarily paying Yelp or paying Google. Has anyone kind of navigated all that? I'm trying to claim the pages correctly, and we have 2 offices, and so it makes it a little complicated because sometimes they'll let you have 1 page, and then other times you'll talk to someone else and they want you to have 2 separate pages because it's same doctors but a building that's 3 miles down the road. So I was wondering if anyone has been able to navigate claiming and kind of customizing those pages without paying Google or Yelp for doing that.
Let me jump in here on that one. Yelp in particular, well, let me start with Google. You shouldn't need to pay Google anything, but you can go in and, good.
Yeah.
You can go in and just claim those.
Okay.
And add the information. What you need to do is set up a username and password for your portal, right?
Right.
And then you should be able to create a separate listing for each office. In fact, they'll require that in Google, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can use, you can add photos and videos. One of the things that's a really great feature that's been added recently has been posts. So you can add a picture with an offer, and it shows up with that picture on your local listing, which brings people's eye into that offer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen that, and that can create some nice attention on that Google listing. So Google's a little easier to navigate, I think, and they're giving you a lot more options. And there's an option, I think, right on the listing where you can click and claim that. And then the key part of this with Google is they'll want to verify that you're the owner, that you're not somebody coming in and messing with this listing that belongs to someone else. So they'll send you can either set it up by phone or you trigger a postcard, and they'll send you that postcard with a code on it. And then you enter that code, and they'll take those changes that you've made in the portal. They'll take those live and show them on the website. Yelp, once you start showing some interest in Yelp, they'll probably send a salesperson after you.
Yeah, I have one that calls me like all the time.
Yeah, about every other day. And they are very persistent, and you just learn to say no.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing, and because I just feel like it's pretty expensive, and you're only then working with just Yelp, and you're allocating a lot of marketing dollars to just this one group.
Yeah.
And so, okay, yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are a few places where Yelp is well developed, and the thing that I would use as a kind of a measuring stick as to whether it's useful to do that is 2 things. I'd say, first of all, if I maximized what I'm spending in Google and Bing already in terms of search, because that's going to be the place that's going to bring you the best return for your dollar. And then Yelp is kind of a secondary site, and it really does good from what we've seen with doctors when they deliver an audience. So if I'm in California, for example, people in California are used to going to Yelp to check out businesses. People in Richmond, Virginia are not, as a general rule. So, we've had doctors in California that are getting a very nice return on Yelp in conjunction with their other marketing. We have doctors on the East Coast. We have a doctor on the East Coast that tested Yelp, and we helped them make sure they were getting some tracking, and they spent twice as much as they got in revenue. so you have to kind of, I think it's very much a secondary marketing option after you've pretty much exhausted everything you can do in search. That's going to be a better place to put your money.
Okay. Thank you.
And yeah, and just say no when they call.
Just so you're aware, everyone can see that little chat that Darren's typing, just some good advice and things that he's done. So in that little chat feature, mine just pops up when somebody types. I don't know if that happens to everybody else, but can everybody see that? The little chat feature? Okay, good.
Very good. One other area that Aaron, you just brought up local listings, and one other area that I think is becoming critically important is reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's a little bit of a misperception among a lot of doctors about reviews, and they say, oh, people said they saw me, you know, they saw my reviews and it caused them to come in, and it's true. But the reviews alone are probably not going to have people finding you. The pattern is more they come to the search engine, they search, they find your office, and then they're going to go back and read the reviews. And I shared with you some information in this presentation about some research that was done last year on reviews. And the key things they look at are, they look at your star rating, which is going to be an accumulation of all your reviews, right, for ever since you've been up, okay? And then I'm going to pull up this research. Here we go. They're going to look at your star rating. Then they also, a large proportion, look at the quantity of reviews. So they're going to see how many reviews you've had. And then they look at recency. And that's the thing that a lot of practices are missing. They think, well, if I get, 100, 150 reviews, then I'll be set. And really, it's becoming part of just running into practice all the time. Got to have reviews that are, they can look and see that somebody who came in 2 weeks ago was as happy as somebody who came in 2 years ago. And then they look at the length and detail in the review and kind of test the enthusiasm level of the review and how excited people were about your practice. So those are a few things. I'll tell you something interesting. I was talking to a couple of doctors a while back, and they were really successful in building up their reviews. And we have some doctors that have got now hundreds of reviews in Google. But they were using our review tool, and it allows them to write that review right while they're in the office. And I asked them what they were doing, and this would be pertinent for all of you. Both of them said, well, I actually asked for some of those reviews along with my team. And people are a little less inclined to forget about it and not do it when the doctor asks. They feel some commitment to you. You're their caregiver. And so they had experienced an increase in reviews as they got into the process along with their team.
As a general rule, most Crown Council offices find their patients that they're going to ask for reviews in their morning huddle. And most set a goal to ask for 2 online reviews from patients a day. So these are people that are targeted in a morning huddle and then specifically asked by the team to leave a review. Setting a goal to do something like that with a team is not out of the question, especially if it's 2 or 1 a day. It doesn't have to be every single person that comes in. But we found across the board that 2 people a day should be asked to leave an online review for the practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you're in a mode where you're really trying to grow this aggressively, it's kind of a numbers game. You know, people. We actually recommend to our practices that they identify 5 people a day, and then identify. You know, if you're in a mode where you're really trying to build that aggressively, you know, we suggest even going after that a little more rigorously as you get that build up. And so I'm at odds with my brother Steve a little bit on that, because he does 2 reviews, 2 referrals,
Right.
which is also a good thing to do. But that can make a real difference if everybody's in on the game, and you know, you assign those out as to who's going to ask them. And I'll share with you a little secret. We found that changing the language just slightly in how we ask for those reviews can make a real difference. So what we would typically do is we'd say, hey, would you be willing to write a review for us, right? And so what we've done in that wording is we're asking them if they'll do us a favor, right? And if we change that wording a little bit and say, would you be willing to share your experience in the office today with someone who hasn't visited us before? Would you be willing to share your experience in the office today with someone who hasn't visited us before? You see how we've now shifted the psychology of this. We've not asked them to write a review. We'd asked them to share their experience. We want them to tell their story and what they felt and experienced and saw in the office and how they felt. And then we've asked them to share that with somebody who hasn't been here before. And you know, our inclination is to help people, isn't it? Somebody asks us to help out, where most people are willing to help other people. And it kind of shifts that to them being of help to somebody else. So just a little tip that we picked up, copy genius from other places that we've run across, but that's something you might consider. We've also found it is a bit of a numbers game. So the minute they walk through that door to leave your office, your probability of getting them to write a review goes down significantly. So we recommend using a tool that allows them to write that right while they're in the office. They're in the moment, they're thinking about it, and they haven't got a lot of other things competing for their attention. And there are a number of them out there. You just have to make sure that they don't use your internet connection. Don't give them your Wi-Fi password. But that will increase your reviews significantly if they can do it right then while they're in the office. And there will probably come a day, I think, when that won't be possible anymore, where Google will not only be checking your IP address, but they'll also be checking the location where the review was written. But today, you can still do that, and that isn't a problem. So that's something that will help. Just one other thing I'd give you as a tip. Yelp doesn't like you to ask for reviews. So if you have a link on your website that sends people to Yelp to write a review, I'd get rid of that link and just ask them to go to Yelp to write that review. Don't have them link from an email or a website or anything that they'd pick up that you've encouraged them to write a review.
If you're using one of those review services, can you send that to them and have them click Yelp from there? I think that ours just does Google and Facebook. I don't even think it allows you to do Yelp, actually.
No, and last year, about a year ago, I guess it was about September of 2017, Yelp said that they were not going to work with any review tools anymore, and just basically checked out of that whole realm. And then they went further a few months later and said that they did not want any requested reviews. So they kind of talk out of two sides of their mouth a little bit. They want you to put up signs in your office to say, review us on Yelp, but then they tell you they don't want you to ask people to do it. So it's kind of funny. But I will tell you, and I'd be happy to do this for any of you that would like it. We have found a way. We don't generally do devious things, but this is one thing that we have found works pretty well. We've been able to create a link that bounces off your website and goes to Yelp, and then they can't detect where it came from. So it allows you to still ask people, to write reviews, and you can just hand them a card that shows them that link. So if any of you are interested in that, we'd be happy to do that for you. We can just create some artwork you can print out. Here's my contact information if you need that.
Lane, Darren's asking a question. He says, if you send a link to your Yelp page, how can it be determined that you're asking for a review? Will they actively ban the review?
If it's coming from your website, for example, or basically a link that you've provided in an email, they can pick that up. Just because they can see where the traffic came from. Like, we can see where all the traffic came from that comes to your website, right? And they can do the same thing. So if they see that you're sending them there from a link on your website or, from an email link, then they pick that up. But the fact is, the best way to develop Yelp reviews is to get people who are reviewing on Yelp all the time. We call them Yelpers. And there was a Harvard study done a few years ago that all of us get annoyed at all the reviews that get done on Yelp, and then they get pushed off into the not recommended pile, right? And they found the highest correlation between those that stuck and those that didn't was that they had written multiple reviews on Yelp. So if you go online and look at your Yelp profile, just go back into your reviews that are not recommended. You have to go down to the bottom and click on that link and look at your not recommended reviews. And most of the time, there'll be people that have only written 1 or 2 reviews, like you're their first review. And that's the issue. So if you find somebody that's a regular reviewer on Yelp, those people are the ones that you want to have write your Yelp reviews. You just have to ask them, do you review on Yelp regularly? If they are, then, invite them to write a review on Yelp. Make that a priority over Google in those few cases.
It's my new life goal, Lane, to be a Yelper elitist.
There you go. I will tell you, Google is becoming a lot more vigilant about their reviews. We've seen doctors lose reviews on Google lately. So you have to pay attention to that. We've seen doctors lose them for having patients that wrote multiple reviews. We've seen them lose them for, writing multiple reviews from their office using the same IP address, using their Wi-Fi network, in other words. Anyway, they're becoming a lot more vigilant, so sometimes we've seen some of those disappear, which is a little disconcerting. But if you just keep at it and keep working at it, it'll, you'll see those reviews grow, and it'll be a great help to your conversions. They'll find you online, they'll check your reviews, and then it'll help your conversion rate with those patients. So hopefully that's helpful.
All right, Lane. Any other questions as we wrap up here? I'd like to kind of keep this in the hour, but if there's other questions, let's do it. If there's anything else. I know Lane will be at the annual event, so he'll be with us in Las Vegas. He's busy in Vegas as he sets up appointments with his clients, but I'm sure if you wanted to meet with him face-to-face to talk about his own business or ask questions, he'll be there. He's also doing a breakout session, so he's doing a lunch and learn during the annual event. So unfortunately, you guys are going to be at the, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but you guys are going to be at the Young Dentist program during lunch. But if you've got someone from your team or someone else, they can visit Lane's Lunch and Learn at the same time that we're in lunch together with David. So,
I
go
just
ahead.
mentioned to you, yes, we have a business and we have clients we service, but we also like to be available to help you. If there's a question you have that comes to you later, you're welcome to email me or phone, and we'll be glad to be of some help if we can. So just know that we're available as a resource as a Crown Council member.
Thanks, Lane.
You're welcome to give us a call.
Case selections are due on the 15th. I'm sure everyone that's on this call is very smart because you're on board, so good job. But just in case you needed a final reminder, those are due. And David has been answering questions and going back and forth with a lot of people. He copies me on the email, so if you have questions about the case you're submitting, just ask him. He responds pretty quick. At least it looks like he does. And so does Utah Valley Dental Lab. They're happy to answer questions about how the cases should be submitted or making sure that the case was submitted, that they got it. They're copying me on those emails as well. So that's it from me. Unless anybody's got anything else, I'm going to stop the recording and say thanks for being here. Anybody have anything else? Okay, great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Great to be with you tonight.